So I wanted to talk today about the top 10 mistakes that men make in divorce. So we see this all the time. These are our typical things that we see, and we try to steer people away from if we get a chance to give them advice before these things happen, of course, because we do only divorce. I'm attorney Brent Boyer. I'm from Adam, and divorce is all we do. We represent only men, so we see that perspective all the time. So the top 10 things that we see men do in a divorce case, the top 10 mistakes that they make, the top things that you should be avoiding. Don't forget to like the video and subscribe to the channel. That'll help us out. Number one is moving out, especially when you have children. Moving out of the house with no plan, of course, is the rest of that sentence, but moving out can create a lot of problems. Get in a fight, your wife asks you to leave, there's issues going on at the house, so you leave. And you have children together, so now you're in a situation where you may have to be fighting to see your children. You have to fight about custody, fighting over parenting time schedules, possibly getting ordered to pay child support when you're also trying to pay your share of the bills. It all leads to nothing but problems. We've seen this a lot of times where a client, they have all these issues, and really what caused all the problems they're having at the beginning of the divorce and throughout the divorce is the fact that they moved out for no reason. They didn't need to be moving out. There was really no reason to move out, and they just didn't want to be there anymore. Now, this doesn't mean you have to live together indefinitely, of course. You can move out, but you need a plan. So if you know that this just isn't going to work and you're not going to be living under the same roof, you need a plan. You need to know what's going on before you leave. If there's children, you need to work out what's going on with custody, where the kid's going to stay. If they're going to stay with mom and you're moving out, then we need to know what's the parenting time schedule for you. When are you going to have your kids? When are you supposed to see your kids? How's all that going to work? How's extracurricular activities going to work? Who's going to run them around? What's the schedule? You also want to know what child support looks like. Am I expected to pay child support now that we're living apart? Am I then also expected to pay my share of the bills? Or if your wife's not working, maybe you got to pay all the bills. So that can certainly lead to a lot of issues. Plus you have bills at the new place, wherever you're going. Even if you're just staying with somebody, you're probably going to have some bills. And also moving out can lead to now you don't know what's going on at the house when you're not there. Is there some boyfriend around, somebody that's around your kids? You don't want them around your kids. You don't want them in your house. You don't want them touching your stuff, and you don't want that person anywhere in your life. And you have every right to feel that way. During a pending divorce, if there's some boyfriend that you don't want around the kids, a divorce judge will agree with you on that every time. They're going to say, yeah, there's no boyfriends and girlfriends around the kids. You're still married. So what are you doing? That needs to stop. So that's a concern if you're living elsewhere. You need to worry about, are the expenses being paid? Are your things being taken care of? If you left items behind, most likely you have. You're not really going to move out with, a giant moving truck and take half the stuff. That's not usually how it goes. So you take some of your personal things. What about the rest of the stuff? Is your stuff being sold? We hear that story now and then. Some guy's wife has a garage sale behind his back, sells a bunch of his stuff, throws a bunch of his stuff out because she's mad at him. You don't want that going on. That's all avoided by living together. It's exacerbated, made worse by you moving out, not knowing what's going on at the house, not knowing what condition things are at the house, and what exactly is happening at that house. Number 2 on this list of top 10 mistakes that men make in a divorce is not filing first. You always want to file first. A divorce case is a lawsuit. With a lawsuit, there are a lot of advantages to who files first, who is the plaintiff. A lot of times the plaintiff is the aggrieved party. A lot of times the plaintiff is the victim. The victim gets the upper hand. I'm in a slip and fall at Walmart and I sue Walmart. I'm the victim. I get the advantage. I'm the one that files the complaint. I'm the one that writes up in the complaint my version of the story of what happened. I'm the one that controls the timing of the lawsuit. I'm the one that controls when that person is then served with those papers. That's all true with divorce cases too. Divorce, the way Michigan law does it, it is a lawsuit. It is not something you do together. It's not like we're going to go get divorced and work it out. One of you is going to be the plaintiff. One of you is going to be the defendant. You're always going to want to be the plaintiff. You're going to be want to be the one to file first. The one who files first sets the narrative. They control what words are in this complaint. They control what's said about the other person, and also they avoid what that other person might want to be saying about them. If your wife has a bunch of bad things to say about you, thinks you're a horrible person, you can avoid some of that stuff by being the one to file, and now you're writing the divorce complaint instead of your wife writing the divorce complaint and saying a bunch of things about you. Whoever is the plaintiff in the divorce case, the one that files first, they go first at any hearing. So if there's a contested hearing If there's some dispute that you're in disagreement with and you find yourself in court dealing with that issue, you would be the one to present your side of that issue before the other person says anything. So you're setting the tone, you're telling the story the way you want to tell it. Also, what goes along with filing first is getting court orders signed, what are called ex parte orders. So these court orders get signed without a hearing, and they're orders, they're not just requests. So when you file first, you have the ability to ask a judge to sign an order, and it's pretty routinely done. You can get a court order that dictates what's going on with custody, parenting time, child support, and those things all get set up at the beginning without a hearing, without notice to the other party, and then that other person is then stuck with that court order. They may have some path where they can file objections or they can do something, but that all happens later. You know, at the beginning, now there's this court order in place that you've had no say in, and certainly isn't there to help you. There can be court orders on restraining orders on property get done pretty frequently, which would be basically freezing bank accounts, putting a hold on financial accounts, and doing all those sorts of things. Those get done at the beginning of a divorce very routinely. They get signed ex parte, so they're signed with no hearing and no notice to the other person. So you're sitting there, you don't even know there's a divorce case filed yet. There's already a court order that's been signed that's dictating custody, parenting time, child support, restraining orders on property, whatever it might be. You don't want all that going on. We met with someone a week ago who had a ex parte order that got signed that said that he had to move out of the house within 7 days. So they served him with this paperwork. Now he's got to up and leave. He doesn't even know a divorce is coming. He's supposed to find other living arrangements within 7 days. It's really difficult. Even if you have someone to stay with, it's putting a big rush on something that probably could have waited, probably could have been worked out. Had you been the one to file first, wouldn't have happened. There'd be no way your wife is getting some court order signed throwing you out of the house. You know, of course, unless there's a personal protection order or domestic violence or something. But the gentleman that I met with that had this happen, there was no domestic violence. There were some very watered down sort of accusations about how he had done some things. Obviously, they didn't amount to enough for the wife to get a personal protection order, or she would have done that. So she sought this path of getting a civil order signed, get an ex parte order signed at the beginning of a divorce case. Judge signed it. Now this guy's required to move out of his own house. Number 3 in this list of top 10 mistakes men make in a divorce is choosing the wrong attorney. We see this pretty frequently. Someone will come in here, they've hired some other attorney, maybe because they were cheap, maybe because Uncle Joe recommended them or their friend used them or something. And they get an attorney and we look at it, and I'll look at it and I'll say, well, I mean, I've been doing this 25 years. I've never heard of this person. And they're not right out of law school, so what's the deal? How could they be doing a lot of divorce and family law work when attorneys who do only divorce and family law work have never run across their name? It's a problem. So that's like a red flag right from the beginning. Now we're dealing with somebody who probably does not know a lot about the divorce process, isn't going to know the moves, isn't going to know the advice. They're not experts. You know, there's no requirement that a lawyer be an expert in divorce or be good at divorce or even do that much divorce work for them to be allowed to be your attorney and to represent you in your divorce. They're not required anything. They just have to have a law degree. They have to be a licensed attorney to practice law. Then they can do anything. Bankruptcy, personal injury, property cases, real estate stuff, divorce, family law, probate, whatever it is. You can do all those things. But there's no way you're good at all of those things. The days of being a jack of all trades is over. You know, it happens. Look, in the 1970s, that's how it was. My dad was an attorney. He had a law office across the street from a courthouse. He took kind of whoever came in. He would handle whatever it was. It's not like that anymore. These days, you're handling a divorce case. The other person probably knows all about divorce and is probably good at it. We're good at it. I teach this stuff at seminars. I teach other divorce lawyers how to do some of this work. You want someone that knows what they're doing and can handle it. You don't be one of those guys who comes in a few months later and they've had some lawyer who doesn't know anything about divorce handling their divorce case, and of course they've goofed it up. They've made mistakes they're not even aware of, and of course the client might not be aware of it first, because it's the client's first divorce case, and it might be their own lawyer's first divorce case. So you don't want that. You want to stay away from those problems. Avoid that before it starts. Make sure you have a discussion at the initial meeting with the attorney. How much divorce work are they doing? What's their opinions about settlement, negotiation, trial, the county, the other lawyers in that county. What's the deal? Ask them some questions about this thing. All too often, I think clients are afraid to ask questions. You don't know where to start. It's kind of overwhelming. You want to make sure your attorney that's handling your divorce is a divorce attorney. Seems obvious, but it doesn't happen. And that person telling you that they're a divorce lawyer isn't enough. You need to look into it a little bit. You need to find out, how many divorces has this person done? Ask them that question. How many have they done in the county that you're in? Those are all good questions. They're valid things to be taking a look at if you're starting a divorce. Number 4 on this list of top 10 mistakes men make in a divorce is hiding money, concealing things. You do not want to be hiding money, hiding information, concealing information from your wife or from your attorney. It never works out. It's not going to be a good plan. Those people always tend to get caught. You want to be careful, especially not disclosing things to your attorney. It's a bad idea. It never is going to work. You need to really be thinking that through. You do not want to be misleading your attorney, thinking you're going to get some sort of advantage, or misleading your wife, hiding accounts, not disclosing everything. It's a big mistake. It happens. You want to avoid that one. That one's an easy one. You want to just be straightforward with things. Fill out the forms, disclose the information that you're required to disclose, and go from there. That's going to make the most sense. You just want to avoid that before it even gets tempting to do it. There's no secret accounts. There's no hiding money. It really never pays to be doing those sorts of things. Number 5 in the top 10 mistakes that men make in a divorce case involves divorces with children, and it's not being involved with your children. You got to take the time to be involved with them. Hopefully you already are. Most men are. You want to be involved with the kids and know their schedule and know what's going on. A lot of people aren't, and then it comes time for a divorce case and they start talking about the parenting time they want and they want a schedule. And look, maybe they're trying to change. They want more time with their kids than they used to have. They're going to work less hours and try to make this thing a better life for everybody. You need to know what's going on. If you don't know the teachers' names, if you can't name one teacher that your kid has, that's a problem. Learn what the teachers are. Learn what your kids' extracurricular activities are. What are their likes? What are their dislikes? Who are their friends? Who are the parents of their friends? What's the whole story with the school they go to, the schedule? What's the story with the extracurricular activities? What's that schedule look like? Be active, be involved. You can't do none of that and then suddenly now a divorce is happening and you're going to be super dad. It won't work. It'll just frustrate you. It can be upsetting. You want to be involved, want to be in their lives, and that'll be better for everybody. It's better for you, better for your kids, and it just makes for a better arrangement. It makes for a better divorce case to have done all that. Number 6 in the top 10 mistakes that men make in a divorce, these mistakes that you can avoid, is committing to a settlement early on in your divorce case. You want to avoid this. If you're still living together, you're having preliminary discussions, look, in general, your wife's probably not looking to talk a lot of details, but sometimes they are. You want to avoid committing to too much too early on. You don't have all the facts yet. Don't get into a definite answer about who's going to keep the house in the divorce, or who's going to deal with things in your divorce case in a specific way, who's going to get whatever assets, or how you're going to divide retirement accounts, or how much child support you're going to pay, or what the schedule is for parenting time, or if there's alimony, how much you're paying and for how long. You want to avoid that stuff. Be non-committal. Be open to discussion. Say, I'll consider it. I'll give that some thought. Do not be throwing things out as definite final answers on things, as definite final decisions about what's going to happen with your divorce case, because you don't have all the information. You don't want to have a preliminary discussion with your wife about how settlement is going to go and then meet with an attorney only to find out you didn't have all the information. You don't know what the answers are. You didn't know how this was supposed to be, and you didn't know what you were supposed to be doing. I'll give you an example. We had somebody last week who came in and they were discussing splitting the retirement accounts. So he's got $100,000 in his 401k, and they've been married a long time. So his wife is basically going to get half of his 401k. So he's thinking, okay, then I owe her 50 grand. So he's looking at how am I going to get her 50 grand? Well, first of all, he doesn't owe her 50 grand because that's pre-tax money. So he would owe her 50 grand out of the IRA or the 401k or whatever type of account it is, but it's not 50 grand cash. 50 grand cash would be after taxes, after penalties. There's actually a way to avoid the penalty through your divorce if that's what you end up doing. But he was getting way ahead of himself. He was ready to take out a loan and borrow the 50 grand to buy out his wife in the divorce case, and that's not at all what we need to do. If we reach the conclusion that that's what we're doing, and she's going to get half of this 401k account, we can do a court order. We can divide the account, get half to her, half to him, no taxes, no penalties, no loans, no anything. So you want to make sure you have all the information before you start committing to an agreement on whatever item it is in your divorce case. You want to avoid early, rushing to judgment, rushing to a response to whatever issue it is your wife has questions about or is trying to figure out in your divorce process. Number 7, in the top 10 mistakes men make in a divorce, things to avoid with a divorce through your divorce process, is avoiding using social media. Don't use social media. Your best bet would be to make all of it inactive day one when your divorce is happening. There's no good that's going to come of you posting to Facebook or TikTok or Instagram or whatever it is, wherever you shop for your social media stuff, right? You got to stay off all that stuff. That's your best plan. If you're not going to stay off of it, be very careful what you post. Post very infrequently, and just watch what you're doing. We met with a client, it was about a month ago. I met with somebody who was in a contested custody situation. They were fighting over custody and parenting time with the kids. Wife was accusing him of being an alcoholic, and here he was on Facebook posting pictures of him at the bar with his friends. He wasn't an alcoholic, but these posts made him sure made it easy for his wife to claim that he was, and she printed those out and was bringing them into court and using them as evidence. So now his wife is using something as evidence that he created, he could have avoided, didn't need to be there in the first place, no reason to be posting on social media. It can only cause you harm. No good will come of it. Just stay off it. You can go on and look at what other people are doing, but don't be tempted to post. There's never a good post on social media during a divorce case. It's just not a good plan. You want to avoid it. Stay away from it. Number 8 in this top 10 of mistakes that men make in a divorce case, things that can be avoided. Mistake they make is not following court orders. You want to make sure that you follow the court orders. Once a divorce is pending and there's things in place, restraining orders on property, custody and parenting time schedule, whatever it is, you want to be sure that you understand what the court order says, understand what your obligation is, and do it. One way that someone can get attorney fees from you and make you pay their attorney fees in a divorce case is if you're the one not following the orders. If you're the wrongdoer, if you're the reason that they have to go to court to fight about something, is because you're not doing what you were supposed to do in the first place. So you want to stay away from that. Just stay away from the get-go. Avoid this issue of not following court orders. Just follow the orders. Make sure you understand them. If there's a court order that's wrong, if there's a court order that's not just, if it's something that doesn't make sense and needs to be modified, you usually would have a path to do that. You can file objections to it. You can file a motion to modify it because things have changed. That's certainly valid, but just ignoring it and not following it is never going to work. It's not a good plan. And then number 9 in the top 10 mistakes men make in a divorce is removing your wife from health insurance and other beneficiaries and other things in your life. Avoid doing this. It's not necessary. You do not have to start doing this early on in your divorce process. Don't do it. Don't start making unilateral decisions about health insurance or coverage or whose name's on bank accounts or what bills you pay, what bills you don't, or who's shutting off the cable. You want to avoid all that stuff. It's not worth it. You're trying to keep the peace. No matter how the other person is treating you or acting, you want to be keeping status quo, meaning keeping things the way they are at the beginning of the divorce. Keep all that going. Keep the peace. It's definitely worth it. It'll pay off in the long run. You do not want to make decisions, especially ones maybe you can't reverse, like removing your wife from your health insurance, and then it's something that becomes kind of irreversible later. It's only going to harm you. It only makes you look like the bad guy. It's only going to cost you time and money to try to fix it later. So you want to avoid changing any of those type of things in your divorce case until you have an agreement of what the plan is going forward. Once there's an agreement that we're going to change things, that's fine. But you want to avoid making these unilateral decisions. It's a big mistake that men should avoid in a divorce. And then number 10 in the top 10 mistakes that men make in a divorce case, things that you can avoid, refusing to compromise. That's a big one. At the beginning, emotions are high. We meet with people all the time. I do the initial first meetings all the time at our office here with men in a divorce. It's easy to be rigid and not willing to compromise. I think it makes us think we're tough or we're the smarter person or we're better at this. I meet with men all the time. They have kids. They'll come in and they'll say, well, I want full custody of the child. I want him living with me. And you think, well, I already know that's probably not going to happen. So if you say you want full custody and your wife says you want full custody, that's not going to go anywhere. We can't figure that out. We need to be open to compromise at the beginning. You do not want to be taking a rigid position. It's not going to work. It's not helpful to anybody. It's not a good plan. So refusing to compromise can be a big problem at the beginning of a divorce. Happens all the time with custody. It can happen with houses. It can happen with all sorts of different things. I want the house. I'm not going to let my wife get this house. I'm going to keep it no matter what. It won't make any sense. It's not the time for that. You want to be open to compromise, open to options, and looking at keeping an open mind about what's going to be reasonable, what's going to make sense in your divorce case instead of what you want. You might both want some of the same things, and we got to work out who's going to get what and how that's going to work. So I hope that helps. But again, these top 10 common mistakes that men make, they're all avoidable. They really can be avoided. And the number one thing to take away is get advice early on. The earlier the better. When you know what you're dealing with and you know sort of the do's and don'ts and what your divorce attorney is thinking about some of these things, it's a good guide. It's a roadmap to how to do things. It gives you a sense of what's reasonable. What would a reasonable person do? How's a reasonable person going to look at this? That's going to get you a long way. So I hope that helps. Thanks.